y'all haven't had a meeting yet, have you?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 10 a.m. I ask that as a courtesy to all of you that you ensure that your cell phones are silenced. Also, I'd like to remind our directors to please turn their microphones on when you want to speak to help with the audio and video recordings. For the record, I'll note the public meeting notice was properly posted as required by law. The notice of this board meeting was provided to each director. This time, I'd like to open the meeting in prayer. You bow your heads then. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you, Lord, for all your blessings. We thank you for the privilege of serving on this board and serving our fellow Texans. Lord, we remember Director Flores and Renee and their family at this time of mourning, of loss in their family. We ask you to give them an extra measure of grace and strength and whatever they need to get through this time. We ask you to give us wisdom as we deliberate and conduct the business of this organization today. And we pray these things in Jesus' name, amen. Presiding Officer Cynthia Flores and Director LaChance indicated they will not be present at the meeting. We've now reached the portion of the meeting where we've set aside time to hear from you, the general public. Those interested in providing comments by filling out one of the cards available at the receptionist desks will be called to approach the podium to make their comments at this time. And we have Mr. Mark Graff would like to speak to the board. Mr. Graff? Let me remind you real quickly too that our board is limited by the Open Meetings Act not to discuss anything. We can listen to you, but we can't discuss anything that's not on the agenda, so we'll just listen to you.
Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Mark Graff. I'm a contract grass. We're a sod producer for farms from Brown up to Pilot Point and into Oklahoma. Our farm, we have one farm in the Central Basin near the community of Brazos Point, and we rely heavily on the interruptible contracts that you sell. We use it for irrigation water. I want to compliment your staff, specifically Amy Matoni. She's been great to work with over the past few years, and Amy has helped us navigate the system during this time of drought. I need to address the process of interruptible contract. It's unclear why to me you refuse to sell these contracts when the system is holding more than 80% capacity, despite the extreme heat of this past summer. Second, the process to obtain these contracts needs to be reviewed. To not sell the contracts when there's clearly water available is wrong. Our business and many others like us on that water to support our operation, which is in turn feeds our employees and our families. Tritex alone could lose $2 million in sales if we cannot irrigate. The result to our company and to the 100 employees who work for us could be beyond recovery. We're agriculture, we're stewards of the land, and we need to be allowed access to the water so we can survive moving forward. As I mentioned earlier, Amy helped us source water from another buyer, the Acton Municipal Utility District. This saved us last year, and it looks like AMUD will have to bail us out again in 2024. But here's the problem with the process. Their fiscal year ends on August 31st, but we're not informed until November if interruptible contracts will be sold. By the time a contract is agreed upon and approved, it'll be March. That's a 5-month gap where we don't have any irrigation water. They're not allowing us to make major business decisions until it's too late. We are now entering into a 2-year contract agreement with AMUD to try to prevent this gap in timeline. But if you were to start selling contracts in 25, we'll be committed to AMUD and paying the municipal rate. And the process works against the consumer. Furthermore, we're expected to guess to the acre foot how much water we need. This is an impossible calculation with so many unknowns, such as how many days will be over 100 degrees in the summer, or if April and May will be wet, or if they'll be dry. Secure excess water, we lose everything. No returns financially, and we're not allowed to carry over even a percentage of unused water to a new contract. This counters the reason the BRA exists. You're telling the consumer that if I have 100 acre feet unused, I should pump every bit of it I can, whether I need it or not. The process encourages irresponsible water conservation. Your processes need to be reviewed and repaired because they're currently broken. This is no reason to stop. There's no reason to stop the sale of interruptible contracts, and there's more user-friendly ways to inform your customers of what's available and when they can have access to it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Graff. We'll now move to our first agenda item, report and possible discussion on General Manager CEO. Report by David Collinsworth, General Manager CEO.
Mr. Chairman, this morning I have no report.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2, discussion and possible action on fiscal year 2023 annual comprehensive financial report, ACFR, by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
Good morning, all. So glad to see all these smiling faces today. Today, we're going to talk about the annual comprehensive report. This is as the end of August 31st, 2023. And at 9 o'clock, we had, or 9:15, we had an admin and audit committee meeting. It was chaired by Director Imbro. And we had a couple of questions during the meeting that will probably be addressed by Aaron Wortham, who's the partner in charge for the audit. During that time, before Aaron gets up, I'll give you those 2 questions that we had on that. What I'd like to do now is just go ahead and look at the body of the agenda. I'd like to talk about the purpose, the highlights, and then we have Aaron to give his presentation that he gave at the Admin and Audit Committee. So the purpose of the audit is to report that our financial statements are in compliance with general accounting accepted principles, as well as government accounting standards as well. Both have audit standards as well, and that is what Aaron does with the audit itself for FY23. The annual report, just to remind you that it is a historical document. It looks back prior to August 31st, the key events and financial events. It's on accrual basis, whereas the annual operating plan, which is the budget, is primarily a cash basis. And the budget is what you see each quarter on the variances from actual to budget. The annual report is made up of an introductory part, which is called a transmittal letter. And that transmittal letter basically looks at the major events that happened during FY23. Then the financials, which are your balance sheets, your income statements, any of your footnotes that support those financial. This is the audited portion of it. We also have a statistical, which is unaudited. It's like revenue trends, ratios, other things that help explain how our business runs, and sometimes it explains what our financials are, but they are unaudited. Also, I want to let you know that the comprehensive report is structured in accordance with GFOA, which is Government Finance Officers Association. We have won 37 awards straight. It's 37 years straight. And this is for reporting excellence. But that reporting excellence couldn't be made possible by the staff that I have and others who contributed to it. Are there any questions from my portion? If not, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to give his portion, and then we have a resolution to read after that.
Good morning. Once again, I'm Aaron Worthman, the lead audit partner with Baker Tilly, and I'm pleased to present the fiscal year 2023 financial audit. What I want to do first is go through an audit overview. What exactly is it that we do as part of our audit? I then want to go through our auditor's communication with you charged with governance, and then open it up to any questions anyone may have. So if we take a look at the audit, overall the audit went very well this year. Just to give you some perspective, our firm spends about 450 hours as part of the audit, and that would include taking a look at that annual comprehensive financial report and doing all the related audit testing that we do. If we look at this year's audit, really the only difference this year from this year compared to last year was there was a new accounting pronouncement related to subscription-based information technology arrangements. So that's one thing that we had to take a look at this year and test. I will say we've been working with David and his team relative to the implementation of that accounting guidance. So when we got to the audit, it was pretty efficient, very effective, and we didn't anticipate, or we didn't come up with any issues, but it was due to working through that over the course of the past year. But again, the audit was conducted very smoothly this year. We conduct 3 weeks of field work where we're working on the audit engagement. We perform 1 week of preliminary audit field work in July, and we conduct 2 weeks of final field work in the October and November time frame. Our last date of field work was November 9th, and since that time then is when we take a look at that annual comprehensive financial report. We look at the disclosures, we look at the numbers in there, and we tie those all back out to our audit records and audit testing. If we were to take a look at the audit and break it down, I'd say roughly 30% of what we do as part of our audit process is specific to internal controls, documenting internal controls, and testing those internal controls. I'd say most of that testing is in the information technology universe, so much so in fact that we have a certified information systems auditor as part of our audit team that goes about and conducts that audit testing. But that's 30% of what we do. 40% of what we do then is what we call our substantive testing. That's the nuts and bolts of our audit, if you will. That would be taking a look at your cash and investments, tying those out to your bank records, looking at your fixed asset additions, tying those out to your purchase invoice, things like that. That's 40% of what we do. Then the remaining 30% has to do with financial reporting and our planning of the audit. But what I've done here is I've highlighted some of the major areas of audit emphasis when we conduct the audit. Some of those would be your cash and investments, utility revenue and billing, obviously your fixed assets under construction and plant and service. And then we spend a significant amount of time with analytics, which would be a couple things. One, comparing current year financial results to the prior year, and then also comparing those results to your budget. And then what we do there is when we see any significant variances, when we do those comparisons, we'll give additional audit testing in those areas, just given some of those anomalies. So our audit is performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. Those are the standards that we're required to follow as your audit firm. In addition to that, we also audit you in conformance with government auditing standards. Those are additional standards for our audit team relative to continuing professional education, supervision, due care, quality control, and independence of our audit team. Our audit objective is to obtain reasonable assurance that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. At the end of this year's audit, your financial statements have received an unmodified opinion, which is also known as a clean opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide as your audit firm. Now, I mentioned earlier we provided the opinion on your financial statements. I do want to make clear we do not provide an opinion on internal controls. However, we're required to test those internal controls, look at those internal controls, and categorize any deficiency in those controls or lack of controls in area of severity. The most severe of which would be what we call material weakness. And it's any breakdown in control or lack of control that would lead to more than a reasonable possibility that your financial statements could be materially misstated. And we did not identify any material weaknesses. The next categorization down is what we call significant deficiency. It's less severe than a material weakness, but it's a large enough deficiency that it would warrant your attention as governance. And we did not have any significant deficiencies. And then the last categorization is what we call minor control deficiencies or industry best practice recommendations. I would say we will almost always have these types of recommendations. We did have a couple of those specific to information technology, but again, that would make sense, right? Because the information technology and the cyber universe continues to change, and as such, these controls need to change. But again, none that rose to a material weakness or significant deficiency. One of the items you received is what we call our audit results letter. Within that letter, we have what we call our auditor's communication to you charged with governance. It's a required communication. Just a couple things I wanted to highlight on here relative to that. One would be our independence. So we're here to report that our firm and every individual on your audit engagement is independent in fact and appearance with your organization. As part of the audit, we did not identify any significant or unusual transactions. Again, the only difference this year is the new accounting for the subscription-based information technology arrangements. We often get asked when you're taking a look at your statements, what are the limitations of those statements, or what should you really be cognizant of when you go and review those statements? And I will say it almost always has to do with significant estimates. So much so, in fact, that we're required to communicate and point out to you every significant estimate within your financial statements. Your organization has three. One would be your accrued compensated absences, your net pension liability, and your depreciation. So we spend a lot of time taking a look at those to make sure that we believe that they're reasonable in regard to your financial statements. One of the items of note within your financial statements are your accounting policies. You would find those within note 1 of your statements. If you haven't taken a look, I'd urge you to take a look at those statements or those policies. Within that policy, one of those would be your capitalization policy. But again, take a look at those when you get a chance. If we had any adjusting journal entries or waived adjusting journal entries as part of the audit, we would be required to disclose those. And we did not have any adjusting journal entries as part of this year's audit. If there were any major significant findings or concerns, we'd be required to disclose those, and we did not have any of those. One thing I will say is this would not be the first time you'd be hearing about that. If we did have any significant findings or issues, I would reach out to the board chair to have those discussions timely. One of the things we talked about in the audit committee and spent some time on is the changes in the audit process. Some of the significant changes that we're starting to see in this profession deal with data analytics and artificial intelligence. So we talked about some of those things, and I will say we will only continue to see more of that going forward, and we've just now started to utilize some of those items. One of the items we use those for specifically is with our journal entry testing. Again, these things are supposed to help identify risk. They're supposed to help identify, where some of these problems could occur. And then it allows us as auditors to really focus on those areas based on the preliminary testing or results of those items and analytics. So again, we spent some significant time talking there. With that, I'd like to thank David and Matt and their entire team for the work that they do. Again, you don't get to these results just by chance. Their team does a great job, and they spend a lot of time during the year. If there are questions during the year, they proactively reach out to us to have those discussions so we can have an efficient and effective audit. But with that, I'll open up to any questions anyone may have.
Any questions?
And I just want to clarify, because I clarified in the Admin and Audit Committee, when he refers to David and Matt, it's not David and Matt. It's David CFO and Matt Wheelis, which is also works for David, and those two guys and their staff do an outstanding job of keeping us on track.
He runs a good shop. Is there a resolution? Thanks, Aaron. Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors hereby accepts the Brazos River Authority's annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ended August 31, 2023, and approves its filing with the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. And be it further resolved that the Chief Financial Officer is hereby designated to file the report and the annual filing of the affidavit with the Executive Director of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Lattimore, Director Lattimore, and second. Director Ford. Please poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Huber.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Warren.
Yes.
Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Geezy.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Jimenez.
Yes.
Director Khan. Director Crone.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Embro.
Yes.
Director Parks.
Yes.
Director Ruiz.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes. Agenda item number 3, discussion and possible action on East Williamson County Water Treatment Plant Expansion Engineering Design Contract by Brad Burnett, Central and Lower Basin Regional Manager. Brad?
Good morning, everyone. This is an action item. We're going to be requesting approval of an engineering contract with CDM Smith for a 10 million gallon per day expansion of our East Williamson County Water Treatment Plant. And we have with us today Alan Wilkie and Steve Link over here representing CDM Smith. So just an aerial overview of the plant here. We've brought several items related to this facility to you over the last few years. And so some of you may remember the map here, but I'm just going to kind of orient you. We've got our raw water pipeline that's coming in from Lake Granger. It's about 3 miles back to the intake this direction. We've got the treatment plant itself here in the blue outline, and then the green treated water line is where the water leaves the plant. It goes about 3.5 miles to where our customers take it. You can also see our Trinity Aquifer groundwater well here. And y'all may remember, I think at the November board meeting, you approved us to purchase some property right here. It's not really shown on the map yet, but we did actually purchase that property back in December. So we've got an additional 28 acres there that we'll be able to expand on as we need to in the future. And our customers here are the City of Taylor, the Jonah Water Special Utility District, and the Lone Star Regional Water Authority. This next slide I'm going to go to is going to be an aerial image looking back from about right here back to the northeast a little bit. So just to orient you what you're fixing to see here, just another picture. The original plant was built in 1990, and it was pretty much all housed in this barn right here. This is what we call the East Plant, and that's what was there in 1990 and what was pretty much there when we purchased it from the city back in 2004. We expanded it one time before from about 2006 through 2008. We increased it from about 5 to 13 million gallons per day. We also added this terminal storage reservoir that you see here. This holds 20 million gallons of water. So when we pump the water from the lake, it comes into this reservoir before it's treated. And then these are some chemical buildings that were added in the last expansion, some clarifiers here, and there's some filters back off here to the right. So looking at the demands here, why are we needing this expansion? You can see the charts here, the lines are showing the peak demands by month for the facility as a whole, which is the blue line, and then for each individual customer, which are the colored lines below the blue line there. And you can see that the demands from the plant were pretty stable up until about 2020. We were having peaks in the summertime, mostly around 6 to 7 MGD. You can see, each one of these is a summertime peak, and we're right in here. But about 2020, you see the curve start going up, and we've been having rapid increases in our use from the plant and our peaks as well over the last several years. We had a peak of about 12.5 million gallons per day this past summer. I'm sure all of you remember last summer as well as 2022 were very, very hot and dry summers. Had they not have been, our peaks wouldn't have been this high. So the amount of water that we have to provide is somewhat dictated by how bad the summers are. And we've had a couple of bad ones the last couple of summers. But right now we're capable of treating about 13 million gallons a day. So we're just, right above that peak right there. So with this project we're talking about today, we're talking about approval of engineering services to get the plant expanded by another 10 million gallons per day. And so the major components of this expansion are going to include new pumps at our Lake Granger intake structure, as well as that terminal storage reservoir that I just showed you. We'll be adding some new pumps there. The intake structure itself was oversized when we built it 10 to 15 years ago. And so we're not going to have to really do anything with the structure, but it's got space in there for additional pumps. And so we'll be having to look at some additional pumps for the structure. I think we're looking at adding an additional 4 filters and 2 clarifiers, as well as some chemical system expansion and upgrades. A new treated water storage, that's what we call a clear well. After the water is treated, it goes into that vessel before it's pumped to the customers. Some additional sludge lagoons, and also a new treated water pump station. So those are kind of the major elements of this project that we're looking at. So this is the 4th component in a series of short-term improvements that we've been working on over the last couple of years. Right now, we're in the middle of I think we're pretty near completion with the re-rating study that's going to be complete this year. That's the blue box that you see there at the top. We were actually expecting to get another 0.75 MGD out of that study. It's basically a process where TCEQ approves you to operate the plant at higher levels just based on some operational changes in efficiency. It doesn't require any infrastructure. We've been testing that. I think for the last couple of months, you've got to go through a process where you run for so many days and submit the data to TCEQ. And what we found is that we're expecting to be able to get potentially twice that amount of water. So at least 0.75 MGD, maybe up to 1.5 million gallons per day additional, and that will be available to us this coming summer. The other project that you see there next, the next 2 blue boxes were underway with engineering design that you authorized last year for incorporating Trinity Aquifer groundwater. You may recall we're going to be installing a cooling tower and some disinfection equipment to be able to blend that groundwater. And we're also in engineering design on a new 48-inch treated water line that will give us more capacity to get the water that we're able to treat at the plant to the customers. And so engineering contracts are already underway on those. And today, again, we're seeking authorization just for the 10 MGD treatment plant expansion. And when we look at our projected demands, we're expecting that this expansion should get us out at least to the year 2035. And we'll obviously be monitoring our demands between now and then. And long term, we're looking at potentially expanding the plant up to as much as about 40 MGD. And we're also looking at aquifer storage and recovery there in the future. So those are the 2 boxes that are just white colored, outlined in blue, that are on the radar, for the future, depending on what we actually see with demand growth. So this slide lists the major elements of the scope of work for the proposed engineering contract that we're talking about today. We got standard detailed design work. So that's the 30, 60, 95, and 100% design. Some modeling, geotechnical work, surveying, regulatory coordination with TCEQ. We've also got, if you look down through the list, bid phase services for selecting a contractor once we get the design complete, as well as construction phase services, and that would be administering the construction contract once we select a contractor, reviewing submittals and requests for information, and then having a resident project representative on site during the construction period. So all of that's included here, basically all the engineering work that we'll need for this project from now through its completion. And we're talking about a pretty costly project. The opinion of probable construction cost right now is a little over $105 million. And so we're talking pretty big dollars on overall construction and, pretty big dollars for the engineering work that you see here. This is basically the same list you just saw, but we have a duration associated with each of the tasks there, as well as a cost associated with them. And if you're looking in the cost category, the big items are the detailed design, a little over $6 million. And then if you scan down further, you'll see the construction phase engineering and resident representative services when we have an engineer actually out there during construction. And those 2 tasks are about $7 million. So those are the bulk of what we're looking at here. We're looking at a little under 5 years until the project is completed, assuming, we get approval today to get started. And I think this is the last slide that I have. So the resolution that I've got on the next slide, you'd be approving a contract with CDM for not to exceed $15,412,369 to complete this work. So that's the presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have before we move to the resolution.
Thank you very much. I just want to clarify, we have storage capacity right now for 13 million gallons daily on that slide, and you're going to boost this up over 50 to 60 months to 10 million gallons extra in storage to be used?
We have storage for 20 million gallons of raw water, that reservoir that I showed you, but our treatment capacity is 13. So in a single day, we can treat 13 million gallons a day and send that to our customers.
Okay,
The
and
groundwater well and the treated water pipeline that y'all approved, the engineering work last year, those are going to get us up to about 17 MGD, plus the re-rating study that I mentioned.
Good,
And this
yeah.
10 will get us up to a total of 27. So we're looking at going from 13 today with all three of these projects up to 27 MGD in the next 5 years.
it's a lot. So we're not going to be taking any new customers, or are we just going to maintain the growth of Williams County or Taylor and I guess that water district you've got and the other entities? Is that basically where we want to confine ourselves to, or is there a possibility you're going to add more customers?
There's always a possibility. We get people calling us from Williamson County weekly about the need for water there. We haven't added any new customers. Probably Lone Star came online about 2015. And so I think our ideal scenario would be for the existing customers that we have to supply others rather than us entering new contracts. But I can't say that we would never do that. We get a lot of inquiries about others needing water in that part of the county.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Director Ambrose?
Facility for backup power.
Good question. So going back to Winter Storm Uri, at that time, we had one backup generator there that was capable of getting our treated water to the customers, but it wasn't capable of continuing to run the plant. And so we had 2 million gallons of water on site that if we lost power, we could get that water to the customers. But after that, we were dead in the water. And then Winter Storm Uri, we were dead in the water, and we were without water to our customers for about a day and a half. After that, we purchased 4 backup diesel generators, I think in 2021, and have installed those at the facility now. And it was very fortunate that we did, because some of you may remember the ice storm from this past winter. It was terrible around the city of Taylor. I know Jen and some others that live there, Director Crone, remember how bad that was. And we ended up having to run on generator power for 5 straight days. And we were able to successfully do that. We never missed a beat. We didn't have to cut back production at all. So we've got those generators in place now. And as a part of this expansion, the engineering team will be looking at additional generation capacity to power the added capacity that we're adding here.
That's included in that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Director Lattimore?
My question follows on what I think where Director Bourne was headed. We're looking at spending a bunch of money here on future capacity. Is ours the only game in town? I understand that we're addressing future growth. What's the competitive aspect? Is there anybody else that can furnish this water, or is it just us that's got the water available?
So that's a really good question. And we're not the only game in town. We're the only game in town that's even remotely affordable. And Director Lattimore, we are also looking at additional water supplies to supplement beyond 2035 and 2040. So the only other game for our Williamson County is Carrizo Wilcox water. And it is significantly higher. And our contracts also protect us from our customers going and acquiring other water at our detriment.
So my question is, we're looking at spending $15 million. We don't have a contract specifically to back that up. In other words,
No,
a guarantee.
yes, so that's a good question, and we do. The contracts that we have in place with Jonah Water Supply and Taylor and Lone Star back this spending up.
So that money is assured. I mean, we're going to get repaid.
Yes, sir. The contract requires them to pay for and be dedicated to this expansion. Now, I also, because we're going down this road, the contract that we have with them is old and antiquated, and we're before we move into construction, there's some things that are going to have to be updated on that contract to not guarantee that they pay us for the water, but guarantee that as we move forward, we have the ability to continue to cover our cost and do those things.
Thank you very much.
Director Crone, did you have a question?
That conversation just took care of what I was going to ask. Thank you very much. And then I also wanted to say thank you for the very clear way that you broke all that down, especially well, that's good, that slide and your next one, and the next one. This really was very helpful to look at that long term and what's happening during each one of those months, because sometimes when we make these decisions and then it goes forward, but it's just nice to see what should be happening so that when we get our weekly information and our updates, we can connect and link the two together. So thank you very much for that.
Director Taylor, question?
How was the engineer selected?
We went out for proposals for this project back, I think, in 2021, and selected CDM Smith from a group of probably 4 or 5. I don't remember how many we got, but we selected them and negotiated the contract with them to do the initial phase. And then we've been doing, the other phases that you approved last year and now this one. So, yes, sir.
Any other questions?
On the resident engineering portion, the 33.7 million, will BRA staff be augmenting any of that work, or is that completely third party that will be doing?
We have our folks that will be out there keeping an eye on things as well, but we place a lot of the responsibility on our engineers. And when we're putting together these contracts, we get them to send us copies of their rates for all their billing and their positions, what their estimate of hours is going to be. And, obviously for the construction services, we're not there yet. We've got to do the design. And so they'll only be billing us for what we actually have out there, and it's based on the fee schedule that they've given us for the contract negotiation right now.
Okay, please.
Going to allow you to do, how long do you think it'll take to make up that 15 million?
Oh, then the question becomes, when do you recover your 110 million? In investment, it just depends on growth and what the actual cost is. It could be 15 to 20 years or better. That's because that's the way that we issue the debt and how we cost the project. If we rolled $110 million at a rate to recuperate it any sooner than that, it would be so burdensome, nobody could afford the water. Does that answer your question? Okay.
If there are no more questions, please read the resolution.
One more,
yeah.
just one more quick comment. Director Crone brought this up and complimented the presentation. Mandy Cullar over here, wave your hand, Mandy. Mandy is our project manager on this project and all the work that we have going on out at East Williamson County, and she's been doing a really good job for our department and working with our engineers. So the compliment goes to Mandy.
Well, while we're complimenting, let me say that the 2 consulting engineers you mentioned that are working on this project are here today with us, and there are a variety of consulting engineers working on other projects with us today. And I know you're busy people, and we appreciate you attending the meeting today. Thank you very much. Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to negotiate and execute a professional services contract with CDM Smith Incorporated for all activities required for the permitting, engineering, design, and construction oversight services for expansion of the East Williamson County Water Treatment Plant and associated raw water pumping capacity to approximately 24 million gallons per day in an amount not to exceed $15,412,369.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to
So
adopt?
moved.
Director Crone moves to adopt. Director Henderson seconds. Please poll the board.
There we go. Assistant Presiding Officer Huber,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Bourne,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Giese,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda item number 4, discussion and possible action on retirement committee membership by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
Good morning again. Pension Review Board requires that anytime we make a change to our retirement committee, that we must bring to the full board for approval for those changes. Presiding Officer Flores, based on our policy, has made changes to the retirement committee and in the officer side, as well as adding Director Jimenez, which welcome aboard, to the committee. So with that, if there's no questions, I'd like to have the resolution read.
Be it resolved that the Retirement Committee shall be comprised of no more than 9 members and no less than 5 members selected from the Board of Directors. And be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby ratifies Presiding Officer Flores' appointment of the following individuals to serve as members of the Retirement Committee: Ford Taylor, Chair; Judy Crone, Vice Chair; Christine Giese; Jen Henderson; Helen Jimenez; John Henry Luton. Appointed members of the Retirement Committee shall serve on the committee until a successor is appointed.
Motion to adopt. Director Smith, second. Director Savage. Please poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Huber,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Bourne,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Giese,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
No.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Are you serious? We had a no vote?
Agenda item 5, discussion and possible action on human resources policy changes by Monica Wheelis, Human Resources Manager. Monica, good morning.
Good morning. Each year, we conduct a review of the personnel policies and bring proposed changes to the board. We're not adding any new policies this year, just updating some, mostly for clarification purposes. I know that you received these in your diligent materials, so I'll briefly run through the changes. On the hours work policy, we're to ensure non-exempt employees are being compensated for all hours worked. We added the red line language to the end of the first paragraph. Everyone good? For the work week, to clarify the exact time the BRA starts their work week, we added 12 a.m. and end on Saturday and ends at Friday at 11:59 p.m. On the overtime worked policy, we're changing the approval process from the general manager approving all overtime requests to the manager over that particular department. It's more an administrative change. On the weapons policy, management believes that we still would like to retain the ability for employees to conceal carry their weapons if they are licensed. And we also added language clarifying that only licensed commissioned peace officers may open carry a handgun. We also removed the word "in a holster" as that is not a requirement of the law to conceal carry. And that's just that policy continued. Disciplinary actions for consistency, we changed the disciplinary steps to actions. And this also provides the flexibility to manage personnel issues in whatever order we need to. This is not a change of how we currently have been managing that. On retirement, we replaced the language that was there in the policy and are now requesting that employees who are intending to retire to provide at least 60 days written notice of their intent to retire. And this allows us time to prepare their retirement benefits and also transition duties and their knowledge to whoever's taking over in their position. The termination policy, the changes we made here are clarifying that any prospective involuntary terminations will be discussed with the general manager, human resources manager, and the general counsel. And the general manager must approve any terminations prior to the termination taking place. A continuation of group insurance, otherwise known as COBRA. We're correcting the language here and putting that medical insurance coverage is up to 18 months to 36 months, depending on the type of qualifying event. The retirement plan change. This is a clarification. We are participants of the TCDRS retirement plans, and all employees must contribute 6% of their gross compensation unless they are seasonal or temporary employees. So this is not an option. And we also took out the reference to guide to membership benefits because TCDRS has gone paperless. So we're referring them to the website instead. The personal time off policy, which is PTO. And that first sentence that I took out, I placed it in the third paragraph. So we'll see it again. It just fits better there. And then we added language to the bottom. And the intent of this change is to encourage employees to request PTO in advance when at all possible, and emphasize that frequent unplanned absences are disruptive and may be subject to disciplinary actions. And then in the chart, we added a column for the maximum carryover days. That's not a change to the number of carryover days. We're just adding the visual to clarify that's how many. PTO policy continued. Here's that sentence that I pulled out. I put it here. And then added that PTO that is taken will be deducted from the current year's PTO allotment first, and when exhausted, carryover PTO will be used. And also changed employment to full-time service with the BRA. That's just clarification. And will be eligible for PTO payout as stated in the termination employment policy. That's referring them to the other policy. So we didn't have the same language in two different policies. And then on the termination of employment policy, the purpose of this change is to provide an incentive for employees to manage their PTO so they carry over some time each year in case of an unexpected illness or an event that requires them extended time off. And then we clarify in this policy, we clarify how PTO will be paid out at the time of termination. And this is a continuation of how we'll pay it out, the current year's PTO balance in those policies. Are there any questions of the changes?
Responsibilities that we as a board don't need to, that's your kind of responsibility to deal with, not necessarily this board. You make your policies for your employees and, you know, I understand the termination issues and benefits and all that, but it seems to me it'd be a bit more administrative than for us to be involved. It's just an opinion that.
I understand. Yeah, and this is, Director Bourne, this is just typically something we bring to the board.
Okay.
So,
The board approves all policies, and then David has the authority to create and approve procedures that give more details of how these work.
Any other questions? Director Parks?
Question as to why you have moved to a policy to not permit open carry when that is permitted in the state of Texas at this point in time?
We have had some employees who express concerns of working around other employees who open carry. And so that's why we're continuing with the concealed carry.
Thank you.
No more questions? Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby approves the revisions to the Human Resources Policy Manual as presented and discussed at its January 29, 2024 meeting to be effective February 1, 2024.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Dr. Ruiz, second, Director Abraham. Please poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Hubert,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Borner,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Geezy,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
No.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
No. Agenda item number 6, discussion and possible action on agreement with Van Scoyoc Associates Incorporated by Matt Phillips, Legislative and Governmental Affairs Manager. Matt?
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is an agenda item to allow us to enter into a 3-year agreement with Van Scoyoc Associates Incorporated to represent us in DC. I've been asked several times on the pronunciation. It is Scoyoc, but for the purpose of this discussion, I'll just call them VSA because it's a little bit easier to get into. So we initially retained VSA on short-term 1-year agreements to help us with the Lake Whitney reallocation study. As many of you know, that's a really important initiative for us. We believe there's a large amount of unused water in Lake Whitney that could be reallocated to water supply to help us meet some of the growth that we have in our basin. For that to happen, the Corps of Engineers, who owns and operates that facility, has to do what's called a reallocation study. A few of us spent several years trying to get that study off the ground, working directly with the Corps and with Congress. And we had some success. We even went as far as including some language in the 2020 Water Resources Development Act at the federal level that basically directed the Corps to do a reallocation study at Lake Whitney. But even after that, the answer that we got from the Corps is, yes, we know Congress has told us to do it, but they didn't give us any money to do it. And so we can't do it until they give us money. And so that was the roadblock that we hit. And so we needed to then go to Congress and get the Corps some amount of federal money to do the study. The reason that was going to be a little bit more difficult than your typical funding request is the Lake Whitney reallocation study was going to be considered what's called a new start. And in the federal budget, those are difficult to get attention for and at times difficult to get funding for. So we knew we needed some help. And so we looked around, we talked to our counterparts on who represented them at the federal level. We knew of some other firms. We chose VSA because to us, they were the best, most competent firm in terms of being able to help us with what we needed. We knew of them through our participation with the National Water Supply Alliance, which is a federal association similar to the Texas Water Conservation Association here at the state level that we work with. We have several of our staff that work with them frequently. And so we chose them based on that, and it paid off. In the first year that we had them on the team, they were successful in getting $250,000 in the FY23 budget to begin the Lake Whitney study, which we kicked off this past summer. What's even more important than that is it was one of 2 new starts funded in the nation in that section of the budget. So it wasn't a light lift for them, and they were able to get it done. Beyond that, we've continued to work to secure funding, the Corps' portion of the funding for the Lake Whitney study. We expect that in the FY24 budget, we'll get an additional $600,000 whenever the federal government finishes their budget process, which who knows when that's going to be. It's always very fluid up there. And then we've already begun working on our FY25 request, which would hopefully to get the remaining $650,000 to shore up the Corps' total $1.5 million that they need to do their portion of the study. As you all know, we're funding half of that. They're funding 1.5, we're funding 1.5. So the more that we've worked with them, we felt it would be good to secure them on the team for a little bit longer and longer term than these one-year contracts. We think that they'll not only continue to be able to help us with the Lake Whitney study from a funding standpoint, but if we're successful with the study and we feel like we can get some water out of that project, they would then help us with the implementation side of that, which is a whole nother process. But if we're ever going to continue, or if we're ever going to look at seeking federal funding for any of our other major initiatives, we obviously know that that's something they can do. And then as we look to permit major projects like Allen's Creek, their relationships with federal agencies like the Corps and all of the others we're going to have to work that through, we think are going to be critical. So that's what this agenda item does. It allows us to enter into a 3-year agreement with VSA or Van Scoyoc Associates. It gets them on the team for a longer term and secures a very reasonable rate for BRA for their services. So with that, be happy to answer any questions. Yes, sir.
Or David, but came up to one of my constituents, asked me, what happens if, because Lake Stillhouse, you know how dry that is, even with the rain. They go, if we're supposed to allocate a certain amount of water to Georgetown, what if there isn't enough water to allocate to them that they paid for? And then still supply clean Harder Heights like they're supposed to, What happens?
Well,
They can't meet the contract.
Director Ruiz, that's another discussion for another
Date.
item that's not posted today. So we can talk about that after the meeting, or if you so please, we can, at the next meeting, post an agenda item, talk about water conservation.
Any other questions? If not, please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to enter into a 3-year agreement with Van Scoyoc Associates Incorporated for federal legislative and regulatory consulting services for an amount not to exceed $250,000.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. So moved. Director Wilson makes a motion to adopt. Is there a second? Director Savage, please poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Huber,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Bourne,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Geezy,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda item number 7, discussion and possible action on Brazos River Authority investment policy by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
This agenda item deals with our investment policy. It's part of the Public Funds Investment Act requirement that once a year I bring the policy to you, whether there's been any changes to the policies or not. In this policy, there were no new legislations that impacted the policy. There is red lines that was provided to you in your package. But working with Valley View Consulting, we decided to make a few minor changes to clarify in the policy itself. But we wanted to add 2 items in the FDIC group. Both of these items we exercised today, but it's not in the policy. So one just basically says the collateral must be simultaneously placed with the deposit that we make with the financials. With the financial group, the bank. The other policy basically says that the officer or leading person that works with us in the agreement must have from the bank, we must have from the bank, a bank committee or basically their board approving that person that can enter into those agreements. Both of these we make sure is done before we give the money to the bank. So, but remember, these policies are given to the banks And they need to see and exercise what we have in our policy that the board approved. The last is basically adding another governing body that can do the 10 years worth, the 10 hours worth of continuous education. Council of Governments is another group that we've added. We're required, the administrators are required 10 hours every 2 years of continuous education. None of these has impacted basically the approach or processes we use in our investments. Any questions? It's basically, North Texas offered a program similar to this, and there's basically a subdivision that's off of it. But since it's not North Texas Council of Government or anything like that, we've added that language. A guy named Patrick Schwenkel is the guy that trains that course, and he is a certified trainer for Public Funds Investment Act, and he has moved over to that group. And so Valley View Consulting says we probably need to add that to this group. Matter of fact, I just finished taking the course through that Council of Government, and it is the same course that you find from North Texas.
That's a new term, Council of Governments. Is that a Texas group or is that
It's a Texas group.
Director Bourne, Council of Governments is a governing body regionally that counties participate in to look at future planning and governmental issues.
Okay.
And I think if you looked at the activities of a council of government in the greater Houston metro area, it would look different than in very rural Texas, where they fight to bring in funding and tax issues and stuff like that. So it's a governing body made up of a regional set of county officials.
But they don't hold a trump card on us at all, though, do they?
No, sir, not at all.
Okay.
No. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, yeah, that's fine, as
Okay.
long as they don't have any kind of say-so over us, that's fine, yeah.
Seeing no more questions, please read the resolution.
Be it resolved by the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority that it has reviewed and hereby adopts the Brazos River Authority investment policy, including the investment strategy statement, approved broker-dealer list, and approved training sources, as presented to the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority on January 29, 2024.
You've heard the reading of the motion. Is there a motion, or the resolution? Is there a motion to adopt? Director Wilson, and seconded by Director Ruiz. Please poll the board.
Mr. Presiding Officer Huber,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Bourne,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Giese,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda item number 8, discussion and possible action on ratification of the 2024 rates for the replacement water supply agreements. That's 2-tier contracts, presented by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
Okay, every year I'm bringing to you, basically, these are the replacement water supply agreements. They're also called 2-tier agreements. They were created out of negotiation with 1991 rate cases. There are 13 agreements or 13 customers that are involved with this. When we say 2-tier, you may not know, or you already know already, you have one for the activated water, which is the water used, and then you have one for the optional water, water not used, and it's half of the activated water. Back in July, in the board meeting for approval of the rates and stuff, we didn't have the information to calculate those rates. So those were basically placeholder rates when we showed it back in July of last year. We have to wait for the November CPI that comes out in December to do the calculations. We did do the calculations, and we did send letters to the 13 customers notifying them of the proposed rate, waiting for the board to approve. Now, these rates will need to be approved by the full board for the 2024 use of the water. The activated water, or water that's used, is now $30.37. The water not used, or the optional water, is $15.18. Once you approve these rates, they will bill to the customer the water that they're using. And I failed to mention, it's about 100,000 acre feet. Any questions?
David, maybe for the new board members, you might go over the reasons why we're kind of stuck with that process, the logic that we go through on that.
Yeah, so that's a great comment, Director Lloyd. So these contracts are old. They go back to 1991. They were handed down to the BRA as a result of a rate case. They define the two-tier structure of a take rate and a non-take rate, and also define specifically how the BRA can go up on those water rates over time. Some of those have expired, and we have been successful in renegotiating a system rate to recover one in the future, and as these expire, we will attempt to do the same. But it is out of a rate case from 1991 that dictated this process.
Director Taylor?
David, what's the term on the longest, farthest out of these contracts?
So I believe every one of them that are left expire in 2041.
Correct. 2041?
Yes, sir.
Director Jimenez, did you have a question?
Just a comment, I was going to say that I was able to attend the Lower Basin meeting in the summer, and BRA is doing a really good job at communicating with the customers about the rates.
Thank you.
Body that made that decision.
Director Bourne, I think if I remember right, it was a SOA, State Office of Administrative Hearings, that the rate case was in.
Seeing no more questions.
For this year?
So the question was, is this rate from back to the beginning? The rate that you're looking at is an increase of the rate from last year, and we will continue to increase that rate on an annual basis.
Any more questions? Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby ratifies the 2024 rates of $30.37 per acre foot for election use water and $15.18 per acre foot for option use water as adjusted in accordance with the formula stated in the existing replacement water supply agreements.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Director Abraham, second. Director Henderson, please read and poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Huber.
Yes.
Director Lloyd.
Yes.
Director Abraham.
Yes.
Director Bourne.
Yes.
Director Fernandez.
Yes.
Director Giese.
Yes.
Director Henderson.
Yes.
Director Jimenez.
Yes.
Director Crone.
Yes.
Director Lattimore.
Yes.
Director Luton.
Yes.
Director Embro.
Yes.
Director Parks.
Yes.
Director Ruiz.
Yes.
Director Savage.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Yes.
Director Taylor.
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Item number 8, discussion and possible. Discussion and possible action on construction contract for the environmental laboratory project by Tiffany Malzahn, Environmental and Compliance Manager. Good morning, Tiffany.
Morning, Directors. I'm here today to ask permission to proceed to construction for the Environmental Laboratory and Boat Storage Building Project. I would like to first acknowledge Tim O'Brien is here. He is the project manager for the engineering and architecture team from Gresham Smith who have helped us get to this point. The overall project purpose is to construct a new environmental laboratory and a new boat storage workshop building for the aquatic scientists. This will give us the ability to expand our analytical capabilities and our sample volume capabilities. Right now, we are limited by the lack of space in our laboratory. It will help greatly to improve operational efficiency as the laboratory that was built back in the 2000s compared to our usage now, it's very inefficient and not set up very well for the analyses we are now doing. And it'll give us the ability to expand in the future and respond rapidly to changes in regulatory requirements or needs of the BRA. The features that'll go into the laboratory building, it's 10,880 square foot building. We will have full exhaust system, fume hoods, canopies, snorkels, which is key to the safety of our staff. A gas distribution system, so we're not having gas canisters out in the lab. Centralized chemical waste neutralization system. HVAC system that's designed with zoning so we can control temperatures in different areas of the lab to different temperatures for analytical efficiency, and it'll maintain our humidity levels at less than 60%. I realized this morning I put my less than sign in the wrong way, but it is less than 60%. DNI's water treatment and distribution system for the entire lab right now. They have to walk to a single sink that has DI water and then carry water back to their workspaces. Dedicated emergency generator and a dedicated waste storage room. Boat storage workshop. It's a 6,000 square foot pre-engineered metal building. We'll have enclosed storage for our 4 boats and covered storage for our trucks. We'll have a workshop area for the aquatic scientist. It will have a small sediment testing laboratory included. That is a very dirty process that they do that cannot be in the lab building because it would contaminate our other analyses. That just will basically have a sink and an HVAC system. Here's a exterior schematic by Gresham Smith. It has been designed to try to blend seamlessly with central office. This is just an interior for the lab itself. And we have this space, this space, this space, this space are all future development for future analyses, along with 3 of the, oh, you can't see. It showed a red spot on my screen, so I thought it was showing it up there. 3 of these benches are open. This lab building, that room, and this room can all be converted for future analyses. So we do have room for growth and aren't building just to be full tomorrow after it's completed. Our bid process and timeline, we advertised the bid on November 15th. Had mandatory pre-bid meetings on November 28th and November 30th. Bids were due January 9th, opened the same day, and then notice of anticipated award was issued on January 23rd. We did have some project-specific bidder qualifications in there that the bidders must meet. One was to have construction management experience overseeing construction for at least a minimum of 2 laboratories of similar size and comparable equipment over the last 10 years, and that they must qualify or comply with manufacturer qualifications for various of the items in there. We received 2 bids. One from Masonic Construction and one from John W. Irwin General Contractors. Gresham Smith took those bids. They reviewed both bids, evaluated for compliance with the project-specific bidder qualifications, checked references, deemed both bidders were qualified and both bids were conforming, and recommended Masonic Construction as they were the low bid.
Tiffany, talk a little bit about early on, the target for the bid number and the folks that we reached out to, and how many we had and how many dropped out and why.
Tim and his team reached out to 10 contractors in Texas that they were aware of that would meet our bidder qualifications. 6 of them right off the bat declined, saying the project was not large enough to pique their interest. We had 4 attend the pre-bid meeting, and after that, 2 more said they just didn't have the capacity for the job right now. Fortunately, these are 2 local contractors, have done a whole lot of work with Baylor University, building laboratories there. So we feel like we are happy that we have 2 good qualified bidders of known quality. So I am not overly concerned that we only had 2. Looking at it, there was about a $2 million difference between the 2. Masonic came right in, even with a 10% contingency between Gresham Smith's estimated OPPC or OPCC. Their build estimate was 9.9, but the range was 8.9 to 11.4. We also are going to ask for approval for 3 ancillary items. Those are $65,000 for testing, independent third-party testing for soils, observation during excavation, grading, and backfilling, structural concrete placement to determine slump, air content, ambient air temp, mixing time and compressive strength, and structural steel, welding and bolting inspections. $200 for Encore and Atmos fees for hooking onto their systems, and $450,000 for a new generator. We originally did the generator as an adult item on the bids. However, the long lead times from the contractor would add an additional 8.5 months to construction. Blake and his team of electricians evaluated it, felt confident that they could install the generator and reduce. We would still have the long lead time, but we wouldn't need to hold the contractor and the RPR under contract for an additional 8.5 months. And the price will be about comparable, maybe a little less. Any questions?
How old is the current structure over there?
The current structure was built in this building, so it was completed in 2002.
So we never had an expansion after that, right?
No.
This is the first time.
So you said a minute ago that there was a list of 10 contractors that someone came up with to send the RFP out to. Who came up with that list?
Our architect engineers at Gresham Smith, they have the lab design experience in lieu of contractors that they frequently work with for this sort of project.
Okay, and you said, so essentially 8 of them just couldn't make it work.
Essentially, either, and I expect some of it is the price of the job, but also having to move from a major metropolitan area.
Oh, fair, okay.
To Waco. A lot of the qualified contractors were not necessarily local contractors. We were fortunate, we do have 2 qualified local contractors.
So one of the things you just said is that there's an alternate for that third-party testing of soils and like the steel placement and stuff like that. Is that in this same, is it part of this number here?
No.
Or is it separate?
It is separate.
Okay, good. I was hoping it was separate. I feel like it needs to, I don't think that those 2 contracts need to.
Yeah, no, it is completely
to be dependent.
contracted separately.
Okay, great.
And the $200,000 for the Encore and Atmos fees, we estimated high just in the event we have to have a new transformer. We've gone back and forth with both quite frequently, and unfortunately, they're having a lot of staff changeover. And we just didn't feel comfortable, and the number that we got today would be the number that would be valid in 3 months, because we've already seen that happen to us a couple times. So hopefully we won't be spending all of that $200K for that item.
Okay, I was going to clarify that too. I thought when you were talking before, you said $200, but it's $200,000.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Director Taylor?
When this project's, assuming it's approved and finished, what will happen to the existing lab?
We'll take that space and begin, we've already begun kind of looking at what a renovation of the central office looks like to house new employees. And we will take that existing lab space and turn it into office space.
Okay, great.
As well as some other improvements we're looking at to enhance our footprint to meet growth.
Thank you.
Director Savage had a question?
Yeah, Tiffany, first, congratulations on getting it this close to the finish line. I know this has been a big project that you've been passionate about for some time. Given PFAS and other things, how quickly do you think, the additional capacity would be filled, with demands of new regulatory testing?
Well, I think we'll always have to look at the cost-benefit analysis for doing new labs with what PFAS is requiring in equipment. I don't ever see that being an analysis that we would bring in-house. They're running, gas mass spectrometers that are very expensive right now. I'm also not real sold on the EPA's method for surface water and wastewater right now as being an actual good, reliable method. I think it needs more development. So I think that is one, given the cost of the mass spectrometer, plus that it's usually a $50,000 to $65,000 annual equipment service contract and maintenance contract with those manufacturers. I think PFAS would be one we would probably always contract out. It would be in the best interest. I don't ever think we'd recoup our expenses. But I do think there are other things, and we already have some plans to expand our capabilities that are going to benefit BRA as Brad works on East Williamson County, as our customers need to expand their drinking water needs. Some of those are relatively low-tech analyses that don't need a lot of space, but they would be critical as water becomes more critical in the state for people developing new water supply projects. Also very concerned about a handful of our reservoirs and concerns for algae shifts from blue-green or from green algae to blue-green, which can bring some significant human health impacts. We already have a room dedicated to microscopy that would contain in. So I think we will not overwhelmingly fill up those new spaces right off the bat, but I think as we continue to develop and expand, hopefully it should last us at least another 20 years before somebody long after I've retired is coming back and asking for another one.
Director Lattimore has a question.
This venture out of my comfort zone for just a minute, but you mentioned that you were going to separate out the standby generator, and I have some personal experience, but I'll like I say, I'll get out of my comfort zone. The question involves the interface between the building electrical system and this standby generator. Talk to me, why is it you would want to turn the contractor loose? It would seem to me it's a whole lot better to make them responsible for that whole interface. I'm talking about the switch over between the standby generator and the regular electrical system. I have found that is not a simple process. And it would seem to me a whole lot better to just say, here, it's your problem, you deal with it. And what I heard you saying is that you were going to turn the contractor loose and let our people, and understand, I don't take a thing in the world away from our folks' technical expertise. But I'm just saying, if there was to be a problem, I'd a whole lot rather have somebody that I could hold their feet to the fire than our own staff. Does that make sense?
It does, and we evaluated that greatly as a group and went back and forth. We can't occupy the new labs until final completion per the design documents. And we really looked, our electricians have evaluated the specs. They feel confident that they can do the work. They think they can probably do the work a little cheaper than what the contractor bid. And it was really just not having a lab building that's gonna have vent hoods and other things that we can't get in and utilize, and the expense of 8.5 months more bid. So it was, we went back and forth on that a lot too before we came to this decision. And I think it's just a philosophical preference.
Jim, help me understand, is your concern the warranty and the issues of when we release that contractor and then we come in and find that our hookup can't be done because the contractor had issues?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, and I agree with Jim. This is an important piece that we really need, somebody that we can hold accountable to make sure it's done right.
Director Ruiz?
It's not a simple issue.
Quick question. Have you considered leasing some of this very expensive scientific equipment rather than purchasing it outright? Because I know in my practice, about every 2 or 3 years, that one's obsolete, you need something new. And it was actually more cost effective for me to lease it. And then when the new one came out, they just come get the old one. And if something broke down, they would come in and fix it under their leasing agreement.
We have looked at that in the past with our accreditation and the requirements for instrument history. We haven't gone down that path. It doesn't mean it's something we wouldn't do in the future, but I still think on some of those more advanced analyses, it's never going to make financial sense for BRA to do that in-house. We are never going to run the volume of samples that will make the equipment pay for itself. And for most of the items we do, we get an average 10 years life out of our equipment. Our staff is really good. Heck, we have one we're running that's been manufacturer non-supported for the past 6 years, and that they keep it going. So we usually do get our money's worth at it. We have looked at that in the past, though, yes.
Any more questions for Tiffany? Please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to execute a contract with Masonic Construction Company Incorporated for construction services required to complete the environmental laboratory and boat storage workshop buildings project for an amount not to exceed $10,841,595. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to approve change orders as deemed appropriate by the General Manager CEO, subject to the aforementioned not to exceed value in applicable law. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to expend up to an additional $715,000 for ancillary equipment and expenses for the completion of the project.
You heard the reading.
Presiding Officer Huber.
Yes, sir.
Can I make a unique request?
Yes, sir.
Can we take a 15-minute break and let me visit with my staff about this issue? Because I don't think we're done with the discussion that we need to continue to have to get us to the finish line.
Okay.
Would that be appropriate?
Pause the meeting now. I'm going to reconvene in 15 minutes. It'll be about 11:40.
That legal? We can do that? Okay, all right, thanks.
Okay, we'll reconvene the board meeting at 11:39, and I'm going to turn it over to David Collinsworth, General Manager, to explain some changes that have been made.
Okay, so given the discussion that we agree with, and as Tiffany said, it was a philosophical discussion on can we do it maybe a little quicker, maybe a little cheaper. But in this business, it's all about risk mitigation and what can you do to make sure that when you get to the finish line, you have avoided any risk that you can. And we agree that going this route and letting the contractor be responsible. The reason that I called time out to the show is I wanted to make sure with our team and legal counsel and our engineer, our architect, that this had been bid as an alternative bid and we could legally do that we hadn't departed from a legal procedure. We're fine, everything's good. So what we did is we took the generator money and put it in the bid, and that gives us the 11,348,585. And then Tiffany, what's the 265 at the bottom? Okay, so the 265 is still for the independent testing. So that, again, that translates into risk reduction also, but the generator issue is rolled into the top and the contractor will be responsible for that. Okay, so the 265 also includes Encore coming out and all the utilities being turned on by the utility companies. Any other discussions or questions? Okay, we had a reading of the resolution, but we did not have a motion, so you do not have to take action on that resolution. So if the board is amenable, we can have this resolution read and considered.
Please read the new resolution. Thank you, Dave.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to execute a contract with Masonic Construction Company Incorporated for construction services required to complete the environmental laboratory and boat storage workshop buildings project for an amount not to exceed $11,348,585. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to approve change orders as deemed appropriate by the General Manager CEO, subject to the aforementioned not to exceed value and applicable law. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager CEO to expend up to an additional $265,000 for ancillary equipment and expenses for the completion of the project.
For the reading of the resolution, is there a motion to adopt?
Can I, before we do that, I have a math question. David and Tiffany, sorry. Aggie math. We went from 715 to 265 on that bottom number. And if we move that difference up, I think the total is 11,291, not 11,348. So I think we've got a higher total there than we had prior.
Hold, please.
Their alt bid on the generator was higher than 450. So we added their actual alternate bid item number 2.
Okay.
So that's the difference.
Thank you.
So the motion is correct. Is there a?
I move. Since I slowed it down, I'll move.
Okay. Taylor, Director Taylor seconds. Please poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Huber,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Boren,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Easy,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore,
Yes.
Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
I think that vote tells our customers the board's dedication to water quality and the things that we're going to do, kicking off our Possum Kingdom study and future water quality efforts. I think the board just showed our customers how dedicated you are to maintaining and protecting the resource that we have. And that is one of our strategic goals and our plan moving forward. So congratulations, Tiffany.
Agreed. Item number 10, discussion and possible action on surplus personal property. This is my favorite part, by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer.
And here we go. Kind of want to talk a little bit about, let's see. All right, well, anyway, all right. I want to talk a little bit about the fact is there are a number of vehicles on this surplus list for personal property. And I want to back people up about a year and a half ago. During the pandemic, the COVID area. As you remember, dealership lots were empty, parts were hard to get, vehicles were hard to get. So between myself and David Collinsworth, we decided that we would retain vehicles for a while until we could start seeing vehicles come in. So now in '23, lots are full, vehicles are out there, we're getting those replaced, and we're now starting to bring those vehicles back in to be in the recommended size, years that we want, and age, or years of age, as well as the mileage. Now, we have a group here, and then we'll have some more in March that will be surplusing as well. And the intent is to try to keep the fleet somewhat current, young. So with that, I'll let you see what we're surplusing. There's a lot of good vehicles out there, though, too.
He didn't say that right. There's a lot of old vehicles out there.
Sorry.
Point of order.
They are old, and some of them do have problems. Thank you, David. I appreciate it. If you're a good mechanic, you're good. So are there any
Are there any
questions?
questions? Seeing as there are no questions, please read the resolution.
Be it resolved that the Board of Directors of the Brazos River Authority hereby authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to dispose of the following surplus personal property under the terms and conditions that are in the best interest of the Brazos River Authority. Be it further resolved that the Board of Directors authorizes the General Manager, CEO, to continue to use and/or maintain previously authorized surplus property in a manner that is in the best interest of the Brazos River Authority until appropriate replacement property is received and placed in service. Items no longer needed or repairs not cost efficient. Quantity 1, 2009 Ford F-150 Super Cab, VIN 1 Fox Tango Victor X-Ray 12 Victor 59 Kilo Bravo 23200. Quantity 1, 2003 Ford F-150 Crew Cab, VIN 1 Fox Tango Romeo Whiskey 08 Lima 83 Kilo Charlie 67058. Quantity 1, 2014 Ford F-150 Super Cab, VIN 1 Fox Tango Fox Whiskey 1 Echo Fox 6 Echo Kilo Delta 62566. Quantity 1, 2014 Ford F-150 Super Cab, VIN 1 Fox Tango Fox Whiskey 1 Echo Fox 8 Echo Kilo Delta 62567. Quantity 1, 2016 Chevy Silverado, VIN 1 Golf Charlie Romeo Charlie November Echo Charlie 8 Golf Zulu 145307. Quantity 1, 2011 Ford Expedition, VIN 1 Fox Mike Juliet Uniform 1 Fox 50 Bravo Echo Fox 25059. Quantity 1, 2011 Ford Expedition, VIN 1 Fox Mike Juliet Uniform 1 Golf 59 Bravo Echo Fox 25060. Quantity 1, 2015 Chevy Tahoe, VIN 1 Golf November Sierra Kilo 3 Echo Charlie 2 Fox Romeo 538850. Quantity 1, 2013 Chevy Tahoe, VIN 1 Golf November Sierra Kilo 2 Echo 01 Delta Romeo 286800. Quantity 1, 2013 Chevy Equinox, VIN 2 Golf November Alpha Lima Bravo Echo Kilo 7 Delta 6278545. Lot 1, Quantity 4, Weld-on 90-degree pipe, standard 12-inch 90 weld-on pipe. Lot 2, Woods box blade, 6-foot box blade with rippers. Lot 3, Quantity 2, Yale chain hoist, models BP and BS, spur-geared block chain hoist. Lot 4, shop-made 55-gallon barrel rack with base. Lot 5, Quantity 8, turnbuckle tensioners and Quantity 2 chain boomers. Lot 6, Quantity 70, 8-inch by 8-inch decorative glass window inserts. Lot 7, Panini check scanner MN Vision X. Lot 8, YSI X01 multi-probe instrument only. Lot 9, YSI X01 multi-parameter sound instrument only. Lot 10, Fisher Scientific large desiccator, serial number LD010102. Lot 11, Barnstead Thermaline 12-inch by 12-inch hot stir plate, serial number 6129207958555. Lot 12, Fisher Scientific digital thermometer, serial number 723-14659. Lot 13, Thermo Scientific circulating water bath, serial number 277209-618. Lot 14, Quantity 6 binocular chest harnesses. Lot 15, 50-foot gunnel guard, nylon 1.25-inch and 0.75-inch round. Lot 16, Baldor Reliance Super E motor, serial number F1811286050. Lot 17, Quantity 3, Vortex 10 by 50 binoculars, model Crossfire 10 by 50. Lot 18, Quantity 2 tape erasers, one from Radio Shack, one from Benjamin Bulk. Lot 19, Regalta hot and cold water dispenser, model RWC 195. Lot 20, assorted spirit-filled thermometers, Quantity 13. Lot 21, Quantity 22, assorted Lake Ranger duty belts, nylon under and outer belts, and leather basket weave under and outer belts. Lot 22, Fisher Scientific hot wire anemometer with probe. Lot 23, Quantity 5, Dixon data loggers, model SM320. Lot 24, Fisher Scientific Cat Extra Small Desiccator 12 by 12 by 10. Lot 25, assorted Brandtech Transfer Pets, Quantity 5. Lot 26, Fisher Scientific Touch ESL Vortex Misser, serial number 205N0234. Lot 27, tire changing machine, model ATC 1202, Lot 28, top and bottom wooden cabinet unit with countertop and sink. Lot 29, miscellaneous bin 1, ceiling fans, miscellaneous handles, door stops, doorknob, glass globe lights, door hinges. Lot 30, miscellaneous bin number 2, quantity 2 ceiling fans, quantity 3 globe hanging light. Lot 31, miscellaneous bin number 3, 5 ceiling fans. Lot 32, LK water fountain with bottle fill station, model LZS8 WSSP. Lot 33, case skid steer loader SV300, serial NBM 437156. Lot 34, Ford tractor, serial number 4F20B with John Deere shredder, serial number DE29204. Lot 35, Kubota riding mower B7200, serial number HD51408.
You've heard the reading of the resolution. Is there a motion to adopt? Director Luton moves to adopt. Is there a second? Director Henderson. Please poll the board.
Assistant Presiding Officer Huber,
Yes.
Director Lloyd,
Yes.
Director Abraham,
Yes.
Director Boren,
Yes.
Director Fernandez,
Yes.
Director Geezy,
Yes.
Director Henderson,
Yes.
Director Jimenez,
Yes.
Director Crone,
Yes.
Director Lattimore, Director Luton,
Yes.
Director Embro,
Yes.
Director Parks,
Yes.
Director Ruiz,
Yes.
Director Savage,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
Director Taylor,
Yes.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
Agenda item number 11, report and possible discussion on fiscal year 2024 first quarter budget report by David Thompson, Chief Financial Officer. David?
Both the budget and as well as the investment for this first quarter. If there's no questions, this is just the first quarter, so the variances are very small. Let's get into the next quarters and we'll start discussing that. Are there any questions if we do skip this?
Skip it.
Well, I guess what David's trying to say is these are in your book, these are in your board books. If you have any questions, we'll take them.
Yes, yes.
Are there any questions? Is that on both resolutions?
Well, we got to go through the process for both resolutions.
Right, but that's on both agenda items. Okay, so also on number 12, the investment report. Any questions? Okay, please read the first resolution.
There are no resolutions. These are just reports.
Oh, just, okay, no action.
Possible, okay. Questions on the investment?
Any questions on the investment report?
And that's all I have.
If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Director Savage makes the motion, the second, Director Embro. All in favor? All in favor? With no further business before the board, will adjourn the meeting at 11:55 a.m., just in time for lunch.